Hello and welcome to this brand new podcast, The Remedy of Poetry, that I publish within my Substack publication, The Love Cafe. Here I will share poetry, prose, and ponderings with you. I'm very, very happy that you're here. I'm excited to be here. I have been on several podcasts as a guest, and I had a few episodes of a podcast that I hosted together with a friend, but I've never done that alone. So this is very new for me. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to share poetry. A bit about me and this podcast. So this podcast will be about poetry mainly, and the poetry of our lives, and how poetry can be used as a spiritual practice, and how poetry can help us to connect to our hearts. Because I think that is the biggest gift that poetry is giving us, is that we can, through poetry, connect with our hearts. And in this world where we often have been trained to avoid feeling, connecting to our hearts is the most important thing that we, I think, all need to do, because that's how we create. With our heart, without our heart, there's no art, right? So this podcast is supposed to inspire you and nourish you and make you fall in love with poetry. And a lot of us have been introduced to poetry from the mind. We have learned to analyze it, to find that very one meaning of a poem. So in this podcast, over the episodes, I will give you a little bit of another approach to poetry and to use poetry for internal growth. And this podcast is special because when I was a teenager, I was already so excited about poetry. I put a bulletin board at school and I encouraged people to engage with it. And somehow, and I may get a bit emotional here, I'm very happy that many, many years later, the internet has evolved and I have the possibility to share my poetry with the world. How cool is that? So thank you for listening. Thank you for engaging with my content, and you're very, very welcome here. And after my teenage years, I lost the connection to poetry a little bit, as well as the connection to my true self. So I don't really know. Sometimes I think because I lost the connection to poetry, I lost myself. Because writing is just who I am and creating is just who I am. So somehow it was a bit like that. But nevertheless, here I am, because during COVID, I had a bit of space. I had the space to connect into that field of flow, and I was, my heart was wide open, and therefore the art just flowed. So, and since then, I have rediscovered this beautiful gift that I want to share with you now. So, this was it as a short introduction. Let me dive deep right in with a poem from my book, Limitless, Sharing the Word or the World Through Love's Eyes. And the first poem is Mountaineer. Mountaineer. Oh, I want to say how I came to write this poem. It was the second time, I think, that I visited Ireland, and I stayed in a hotel that overlooked Croagh Patrick. Croagh Patrick is a very famous mountain in County Mayo, and it is located in Westport. And it is very special. A lot of people use it for pilgrimage, and it has a very special shape. It's almost like a triangular tip. It's very clear, and the tip is often covered in fog, which is beautiful to watch. And while I was looking outside the window, I also remembered when I tried to climb a mountain in Greece and Corfu on my own, and I started at lunchtime in full sun without lunch, without having lunch before, and with one water bottle, I think. And I remember it was quite hard, but also very beautiful, and I learned a lot about myself. So this somehow made me think, and then the words started to flow, as so often with my poetry, it just came out. So this is Mountaineer, and I encourage you to just listen and breathe and let the words stir your soul. Mountaineer. When the clouds above your head weigh heavy and the darkness seems to swallow your mind, lower your gaze towards the feet. It was here where you started. It was them who first brought you forward just to carry you since then. And are we not too often focused on the top, on getting there quickly to enjoy the view, when on our way towards the top there is so much to see? It all starts with you, for without you, the top will never be climbed. And it is not the fear of never getting there that takes you to the top. It is the anticipation, the love you feel for the view, although you haven't been there. This is the energy that makes your feet keep going, although the incline is steep. The top will never be climbed without a steady ground, without a nourished body, and the relentless navigation through obstacles. So focus on the foundation and then step back to watch the beauty of the unknown with fascination. Be curious, be patient, for all the clouds will eventually give way to the sun. Sometimes, by standing still, you get a lot more done. And I encourage you to just listen into the silence and which words reverberate within your soul. Okay. And if you want, you can stop the recording and just first journal about what comes to your mind. First thing that comes to your mind after you listen to that poem. That would be the first approach I have. And yeah, I would recommend to stop the video and just journal and then listen on after. Because now I'll tell you the lessons that I took from this poem. So it starts with the clouds above our heads. And when we are deep in a challenge, we sometimes forget to be present. And I even think in the present there is no challenge possible. I think the challenge that we have is never in the present. Because when we're worrying or in fear, that's the future usually. We don't worry about the past because it already has happened. We worry about the future. When we're sad or grieving, that's mostly about the past. Because normally we don't grieve something that's in the future. So that's the two things. But in the present, there's usually no room for fear. So lower your gaze towards the feet means focusing on the present. Where am I right now? And in midst of the turmoil, we can really connect with that present moment. And in that present moment, everything is good, all is well. And our feet also represent our body, anchoring in our body. So when we have a challenging time, just feeling our body can really help to just maybe put a hand on the heart and just feel into it. And that connects us back to that present moment because we are here experiencing life. And yeah, it was here where we started. Without our feet, without our body, without this meat suit, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't experience life. Like our soul needs our body in order to experience life. And our feet are carrying us our whole life. And our feet are very, very important as well. So we can use our feet, for example, very, very good to ground ourselves. We go outside, step on the grass with our bare feet, 15 minutes. It's proven that this really has a lot of health benefits and also helps our mental health. And we can really connect to the energy of the earth with that and really draw the energy of the earth into our bodies through our feet. And then we are very often, are we not, too often focused on the top? Yes, we are. We are in our minds, with our minds in the future already, thinking like, oh, I need to get there, I need to get there, I want to get there. And we forget about the experience of getting there, and the joy is in the experience of getting there. And that's, I think, the magic when we manifest and we experience a moment where we, like, let's say something happened unexpectedly and we just make the connection to something that we manifested, then it's so magical. And then that moment sometimes is more important than the manifestation itself. For example, I am, I don't know, asking for or manifesting some money. And then the next day I go and on my way to my car, there's money on the ground. And then that moment is far more important than the actual money that I have in the hand. It's because it's so magical that it happens, and we're still very surprised that it happens. So I think that's a good reminder that the journey is actually the stuff that it's more delicious than the goal. Yeah. And then, yeah, it starts with us, with you, with me. Without us, the top will never be climbed. We cannot go, like, as I said, we need this body, we need us and our willpower to actually climb. And the next part I only understood after I moved to Ireland. So I wrote this poem, then it was on my PC for years. And then when I brought together the poetry book, I put it back in and I read it again. And then the poetry taught me again. And I was like, oh my God, that's what it was about. I didn't understand. When I wrote the poem, I did not understand anything that was teaching me like that. Like now I'm so amazed about how the words are really making even more sense. So it's not the fear of never getting there that takes us. It's the anticipation, the love that we feel for the view, although we don't know, we haven't been there. That's the stuff that helps us manifest. And that's exactly what I learned about manifestation. So it's the feeling, the anticipation that we have when we are um, manifesting something that brings us there. So, for example, when I moved to Ireland before, I would sit in my car in Germany on my way to my back then work, and sometimes I would just imagine I'm already in Ireland, or I already felt like it. Sometimes it even just happened that I felt like I'm already in there. Luckily, not really, because I was able to navigate the roads, although in Ireland they're driving on the other side. But somehow the feeling that I had was like, just, I've been here. And I think that's why everything went so smoothly then as well. So when we try to manifest something, it's more about the feeling than about the thinking. So if you're trying to manifest something, put yourself into that position and try to really let that feeling come up. That's where poetry is very beneficial, to just write a poem about the manifestation, because the poem raises the feeling, and then you can read that poem, and in that poem you dwell in the feeling, and that's actually what makes the manifestation come into reality. So yeah, play with it. And then, of course, the top will never be climbed without a steady ground. A steady ground for me is a soothed nervous system. I wouldn't have been able to make a move to another country if I hadn't known how to soothe my nervous system. That was basically, especially the weeks before the move, all I did was soothing my nervous system. That took more time than actual packing and other stuff, because it was such a big step and such a big unknown that the only thing I could do was soothe my nervous system. And there's so many wonderful options. If you ever need guidance on that, please feel free to reach out. I can always help you with that and guide you to the tools. And yeah, then the nourished body, obviously we need to take care of ourselves. That means enough sleep, good food, and also saying no to things that are overwhelming us, that we really don't want to do, to stay true to ourselves. That's the self-love piece. And yeah, and then to watch the beauty of the unknown with fascination. And that's a practice, because oftentimes we are really scared about the unknown, because we have learned to fear it somehow, whereas the unknown just means endless possibilities. It's like, it's amazing what we can do and what's all possible. And our what ifs that we often ask very fearfully, we can ask the same what if very hopefully and positive and full of possibilities, right? Yeah, then be curious, be patient, for all the clouds will eventually give way to the sun. Whatever I'm feeling, I know this feeling will pass eventually. No feeling stays forever, although we often hold on to certain feelings because they just seem so familiar, and even if they are uncomfortable, often we still hold on to them. However, every feeling will just eventually fly by, and yeah. So feelings are like clouds, right? They are just like coming and going, and the sun, the love, is always there. Sometimes by standing still, you get a lot more done. That's my favorite one, because I think, especially as someone who just made that step into self-employment, I can tell you, it's really interesting how conditioned we are to do something. And it is very important to know that we can get lots more done when we are refreshed and we had a pause. And we're not used to taking pauses. And when we are in a corporate job, we just have a set pause and we need to go with that pause. But you can always pause your mind. And that sometimes is far more effective than an actual break. So you can just breathe in deeply 3 times, and that's resetting and refreshing your body already. So that is the power lies in the pause. And that's what poetry teaches us too, by the way, because poetry is all about the pauses and line breaks. That's the most important thing in poetry. It's not the rhythm, it's not the rhyme, it's the pause, the line breaks, and the metaphors, but the pause. And the pause, if you think about it now, I'm just making that connection because I'm also a former improv theater player, and the pause actually tells so much and gives you also very much authority. People who are very confident speak with lots of pauses because they just take up space with it. So the pause is very important, to take up space. Maybe that's why we so often don't allow us to pause, because we don't want to take up space, because it feels uncomfortable to be fully ourselves, because we have learned to not be ourselves. Okay, that's it. I invite you now to explore the poem a bit deeper with a few questions. I have a few journal prompts here for you. And the first one is, where do you pressure yourself to take action? So maybe you want to journal a bit on that. Where do you pressure yourself to take action? It's a very interesting one. And then the second question is, how can you give yourself permission to take a break more often? And that's what we were talking about, the pause. Maybe even journal about the pause and the space. That's very interesting as well. So how can you give yourself permission to take a break more often? And then, what is your relationship with the unknown? And after you've journaled about that, and if it's a kind of difficult relationship, if you feel like you always need to plan, you always need to know what's next, then maybe have a look back. That's another thing when we are on the mountain, and we often look like against the mountain, thinking like, oh my God, I have so much to climb still. But then in these moments, to pause and to look back on how far we already have come, what we've already done, and then enjoying the view, really becoming present again. That's very, very important and beneficial. So if you're struggling with the unknown, maybe look back in your life and think about, where have you been held by life? Where have you been guided into the unknown? And where did it turn out to be good? Because we often are conditioned to believe that bad things happen if we don't know what's going to happen. But maybe it's a nice, beautiful surprise that will happen. So, yeah, I encourage you to journal on that. Okay, this was the first episode of Poetry, Prose and Ponderings. I hope you liked it, and leave me a comment and share, and yeah, do whatever you feel compelled to do. I'm very happy that you're here. Thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I leave you with my favorite affirmation. That's also the sections of my book. Always remember, you do enough, you have enough, You are enough and you are love. Thank you so much.